What is up, Realize Man? Today's video is going to be a little bit different. We're going to talk about how to not be a slave. I'm not talking about physical slavery with the chains and the shackles. I'm talking about mental slavery. And this particular subject has been incredibly important to me over the past few years because I lived a particular type of lifestyle years ago where I followed the socially conditioned narrative. I followed everything that I was meant to do, and I was miserable. I looked around me and saw everybody else doing the same thing, and they were miserable too. So I started getting the inkling that we had been tricked. So I started researching, reading, looking at alternate ways. And luckily for me, I did find some other ways of living where life was good, life was filled with purpose, money came easily and not through just working a job. And now I'm in a position where I feel like it's my responsibility to share some of these insights with you because they drastically changed my life. But before we talk about that, before we talk about the institutions that have enslaved you, and they're gonna be surprising, I want to paint a picture so you know where I'm coming from and to really highlight certain concepts. In Thailand, you got these big ass elephants that weigh about 3,000 kilograms, 3 tons, up to 4 tons, the biggest mammals on planet Earth, the elephant. And they are just tied up with a little bitty ass chain, small chain with a little pike or a little stick in the ground like this. And they don't break, they don't escape, they just stay there. Now you might be wondering, when you see this image and think, are these elephants stupid? Why can't they just like rip this thing out and free themselves? Look how big and mighty they are. But you don't know the background story of how this happens. When the elephant is born, when it's a little tiny baby elephant, its masters or its captors, they put the chain on it, and at that stage it's too weak to escape. So it keeps trying and trying, but it can't escape and then learns to stay within the parameter. As it grows, they keep doing the same thing. They keep putting the same chain, but it's already mentally defeated. It doesn't even try anymore because it doesn't think it can do it. It doesn't put 2 and 2 together and say, wait a second, I've grown a whole bunch, let me just pull this thing out and get out of here. It doesn't do that. It has a limiting belief, and that's one of the fundamental problems with most of us today. We are filled with limiting beliefs. So you just keep that concept in your head because it's going to be important shortly. Now I want you to think of a thought experiment. Imagine you have never seen the outside world. You live underground. You don't know you live underground, but you live underground. And you wake up and every day you see a small bed, a flickering light, and a door. And every day when it's time for you to eat, your master comes, who to you is God, offers you a can of tuna or a can of sardines. Now you might be thinking you have freedom because you have choices. You know, the definition of freedom is the ability to choose, having freedom in choice. So you can have tuna or sardines. You're thinking, damn, my life is great. But what you don't know is, once your master gives you the sardines or the tuna, he leaves the room, closes the door, and goes out and has a buffet. He has, pork belly, lamb chops, ribs, steaks, even vegan, mushrooms, whatever he wants to eat, he can have it. Pizza, burgers, fries, kale, everything, he has it. This is his reality. You don't know about it, but you think you have freedom because of the limited choice you have. And that's something else we have in society. A lot of people are thinking they're free, they're thinking that they're living in a democracy, they're thinking they're making their own choices, but they were given a range of choices that were very limiting from the beginning, from the 2 following institutions that I'm about to talk about. So on one side, we have the limiting beliefs, the elephant that doesn't even know its own strength. On the other side, we have the limited choices, where we only have a few options of the possible realities. So what are the institutions that propagate this bullshit? The first one is the education system. Now, many of us have been through the education system for at least 10 years. Personally, I've been through about 18 years. Kindergarten, primary school, high school, university for about 4 or 5 years. I've done it all. And I learned a lot of stuff there. I learned about isosceles triangles, equilaterals, covalent bonds, King Louis IV, but I didn't learn about emotional intelligence. I didn't learn about managing relationships. I didn't learn about dealing with the death of a loved one. I didn't learn about having a life purpose. I didn't learn about mastering negative thinking and my thoughts, or self-esteem, or productivity, or financial literacy, or entrepreneur. I didn't learn about shit. That's the reality for most of us. We don't learn anything that's actually going to lead us to having a good life. What school does is it keeps us in a little box. It keeps our thinking very limited, very linear. I remember back when I was at school, they used to have these classes for mathematics called gifted and talented. So just the association of those words, gifted and talented, meant that the people that were in that class were gifted, naturally gifted, or talented. And that if you were in that class, you were not gifted and talented. So school puts you in a category: dumb people here, smart people here, A students, B students, C students. And it doesn't really inspire people to work towards shifting categories or to think outside the box. That's why so many people think that the only way for them to make a living right now is by having a job. That's why so many people think that as soon as they get sick, the best thing is to pop a pill, because they're following the linear thinking that was started by school, the limited choices, the can of tuna or the sardines. They don't know about the other options because they've been systematically programmed to only think a certain type of way. And that's how I used to think. I used to think that, to make money, I had to get a job. I'll be stacking shelves for hours, wasting my life away, filling things with cardboard boxes, working till 5 a.m. some days. It was bullshit. These days I can sleep the whole day if I want. Money's coming in. These days if someone offered me a job, I wouldn't take it because the opportunity cost doesn't make sense. I can think of a million different ventures that are going to make me the same money, so why would I do that? But this didn't come overnight. It took a lot of learning. The same thing as understanding how the physical body works, understanding how to build muscle. There's common knowledge and then there's nuanced knowledge that you have to go out there and get and study. It takes time, but you can get there. You can build the muscle, you can get the money, you can understand how to have a committed relationship. I've been in a relationship for over 4 years right now. It's been great, right? My girlfriend's on the same page as me. She's doing her thing. She's on her life purpose. She helps me. I support her. It's been great. But if I follow the common education or the common beliefs that are propagated through mainstream media and the education system, I probably wouldn't be in this particular situation, because I will be looking at women in a very pessimistic light. I'll be looking at entrepreneurship in a very negative light. I'll be thinking that every single person that's got muscles is on steroids and won't even try. These are the limiting beliefs that the education system creates for us. So you need to transcend these if you want something out of your life. Stop looking at what your government is telling you. Stop looking at what the education system is telling you. It's all the same thing. It's just institutionalized bullshit that's keeping you limited. Learn to read a damn book. I've been reading hundreds of books over the past couple of years, hundreds of books. And the beautiful thing about knowledge, and I believe Charlie Munger said this, knowledge compounds, just like compound interest. You put some money into maybe an index fund or whatever, and you wait 50 years and you get a particular return on that money. Bada bing, bada boom, your $1,000 turns into $1 million because of the magical compound interest. But what's more powerful than compound interest is the ability of your mind to compound intelligence, to compound ways of thinking, mental models. That's why I talk about this stuff on this channel, to give you the tools, right? I want you to go research it yourself to get a deeper understanding of it. But each little thing is a little block that helps you think a little bit different from the next person who has derived all their thinking, all their education from the school system, which has been systematically designed to keep them limited. I don't want that for you. You're a realized man, which means that your capacity is infinite. There is no caps. So that's the education system. It's nonsense, it's bullshit, we all know that. But the second system, the institution that propagates a lot of bullshit, is a lot closer to home. It's your family. A lot of us, we never look back at our early days, at our youth, at our family dynamics, and we never see what role we played. Because every family is like a system. There's a good book on this called Bradshaw on the Family. Every family is like a system, and every single person in that family has a role to play to keep the equilibrium. So if your father wasn't around, maybe he was drinking or he left or whatever, or died early, you might have had to be the surrogate spouse. You might have had to step up and play the role of the father when you were younger, when you weren't ready, and you might find yourself repeating a lot of those patterns later on in life. Whenever there's a project, you have to be the go-to person. You're the one who's always taking accountability. You're the one that everyone looks to. We tend to follow these patterns. Or maybe when you were in your family unit, you were the scapegoat. Everyone blamed you. Whenever something happened, you always took the blunt of that pain. So you find yourself as the punching bag in your relationships later in life. Or maybe you were the lost child. People didn't really pay much attention to you. Everybody was busy. Your mom and dad were working. Your siblings were studying, and you were just left there by yourself. So you learn to not love yourself. There's all these different dynamics that, once again, we never learned in the education system, that happen within the family that can dictate your actions later on in life. So you need to analyze those, because that is part of your mental slavery. That is part of your limitations. Just like that elephant that can't escape. Have you ever noticed that a lot of poor families stay poor? A lot of rich families continue that wealth throughout different generations because of the different beliefs that are pushed down. So if you are in your family, you never question anything, you never question what your parents told you, you never question what your grandparents believed, then you're going to be stuck. Even in the case of religion, many people follow Christianity or are a follower of Islam, or they claim to be Jewish, and yet they've never questioned their belief. They've never looked at it with any scrutiny. I don't believe those people are religious. If you've never looked at other people's spirituality, never seen what else is out there, and made a conscious decision to follow what you're following, then you're just following for the sake of following. You're following because your parents told you. You're not following because you necessarily believe this. You're following because you think this is the right thing to do. So there are so many areas that you really have to step outside the box, be brave and question. And this is a hard thing to do because 99.9% of people in society don't do it. You will be looked at sideways. When I quit my engineering degree and started doing my own thing, everybody looked at me sideways. But you need to have that self-belief in yourself, right? You need to back yourself up and to know that you're moving towards the right direction. Because if you follow what everyone else is doing, what the masses are doing, you're going to get the same results as them. If you want a different lifestyle, you can't follow their rules. If you want to be a millionaire, fucking forget about your job. If you want to have a good relationship, you have to approach it differently to what your friends are doing, to what your parents are doing, because I guarantee most of those people don't have good relationships. If you want to get closer to God, if you want to be spiritual, you have to dig a little bit deeper. You have to do that work. Everything requires work. There's a price to pay for the good life. But I'm hoping that you're ready to take that and pay that price. Do this, and I promise you'll be one step closer to living and dying well. Thanks for watching the video. I appreciate you. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel and click the bell notifications so we can see more of each other. Until next time.